everyone, and welcome to Incident Prevention's Utility Safety Podcast. I'm Kate Wade, the editor of Incident Prevention Magazine, and your host for this episode. Today, I'm sitting down with Tom Murphy, the founder, CEO, and resident superhero of Sweethearts and Heroes, a Vermont-based organization that works to empower, inspire, and uplift people of all ages across all walks of life, from line workers and educators to students, service members, and beyond. In this episode, Tom and I will discuss the origins of Sweethearts and Heroes, the collaborative work the company is doing in the utility sector, and how individuals and organizations can maintain momentum once they've experienced a Sweethearts and Heroes programming session. So now I'd like to formally welcome Tom to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Kate Wade, thank you so much. And you just used a word that just bang, it hit me. The word prevention. And so hopefully we can talk a little bit about prevention. Our work has been about one thing since day one for 16 years, about upstream prevention. And unfortunately, it just seems like the world just really values intervention, which is important, very important that we have intervention, but our work is about prevention before we have to get to intervention.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you think about even just going to the doctor or something like that, there's a lot of emphasis put on prevention. It's like you want to go and get everything checked so that you don't have a problem later on. It's always better to get at it at the forefront than waiting until something has already happened.
Or Kate, you could go upstream even more.
Tell me.
And go to the gym so you don't have to go to the doctors.
Well, you could do both.
That's right.
You don't have to choose. It's not like a contest between. It's all this stuff, that we want to do to help people. So they have all the tools and everything they need to go to work or go wherever they're going, be safe, be healthy, be a good influence on other people. But before, because you and I are both like this, we jump right in. Why don't we back up a little bit and have you, Tom, tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you've been doing, and how you got started with Sweethearts and Heroes.
Yeah, well, thanks, Kate. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and incident prevention. And if we don't have people like you and your organization getting the word out, we can't affect the lives that we've been affecting in a much greater way. So I'll give you the quick nutshell because it's a long, kind of fascinating story, because I like to tell people Sweethearts and Heroes started when I was about 10. And I born and raised in Philadelphia. My parents ran a mission home, used to take people off the streets of Philadelphia. And that's really when the seed was first planted. And we didn't have a lot of money. My dad wanted to get us out of the city, spent his whole life there, opened up a real estate catalog, moved to upstate New York, didn't know anyone, moved to upstate New York with $350, 3 kids and a wife, and bought a house for $32,000. And that's where I found the sport of wrestling. And I'll pull this all together, I promise. I found the sport of wrestling. It dominated my life. I was a terrible, terrible student in high school. I just wasn't interested in education or schooling, compulsory schooling. And but I just loved the sport of wrestling, dominated my life. I was going to do it for the rest of my life. And then I was ready to go to college, wanted to wrestle in college, had terrible grades, couldn't get in. If I told you the story on how I got into college, you'd believe in cosmic forces. That's a long story, but it's a good one. Anyway, got into college, fell in love with education, had a man come into my life, taught me that life was not a talent contest, that it was a strategy game. And if you have the right strategies, you can be successful in everything. Said, Tom, you're a good wrestler. You've got the strategies for wrestling. Apply those to academics. And because I trusted him and he believed in me, I did. Graduated with almost a perfect GPA in psychology and philosophy. Didn't get any smarter. I just took those skills and wasn't really ready to stop wrestling. And I found the sport of mixed martial arts while I started my early career in the railroad industry. Had a couple great bosses, loved the whole mixed martial arts thing. So they just let me kind of do both. So as I'm progressing in this rail industry, I had a man come into my life there, put me in a position I was too young to be in, but he shepherded me. And at the age of 27, became a corporate director for a company called Rail America out of Boca Raton, Florida, one of the largest short line companies in the world, holding companies. And but at the same time, I'm moonlighting on the side with this mixed martial arts stuff. Found myself in a reality TV show in Las Vegas for 40 days, led me to a little stint with the UFC, but I didn't realize what the universe was doing. It was setting me up so that when I got done with this show, some people called me and said, "Hey, my kids saw you on this show. Can you talk to my volleyball team, my basketball team?" And I just found myself at the dawning edge of this mixed martial arts career, talking to young people, giving them lessons from leadership to business to sports and all these things that these men that kind of shepherded me gave me. I was just giving them to kids in a fun, entertaining way. And I didn't realize yet it was coming full circle back to my childhood. And so, um, uh, one guy called me from college that I wrestled with and said, "Hey, I'm in trouble. I have this presentation we're supposed to do on bullying, and the speaker can't make it. Can you do something? It's only 900 middle schoolers, which are like the greatest savages on planet Earth." So I found
Only
myself
900 of them.
only 900. So I found myself doing that on some Friday. And another school was like, "Hey, we heard about that. Can you do that at our school?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." And so I did it at another school and another school. And 2 million students later, from Houston to Hawaii to Montreal and back, I exited the rail industry in 2014. I started in about 2009 talking to young people. By 2014, it got pretty serious. And so I had a chance to get out of the industry after about 17 years, and I just went all in. And I partnered with a man several years ago that got blown up in Iraq. 70% of his body was instantly burned away. He would tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to him. Wouldn't change it for anything. And I didn't realize the universe was using that as well. Because even though we started in the world of bullying, which will come back in our conversation about the word sweethearts and heroes, it's a very intentional title. Um, what was really happening to me before Rick got involved, Rick Yarish, the fellow I was just talking about, what happened was kids would come back after these bullying assemblies and they'd find me in the auditorium and they'd want to just tell me their story. And what I was really wrestling with was they were talking about feeling hopeless. At the same time, I was like doing research and I'm learning about the increase in suicide in our children in America, which has tripled since 2007. 30% of young women across this country have considered ending their own lives post pandemic. We've never seen this before in human history. And so the universe brought Rick Yarish into my life and said, "Here's one of the world's hope experts. He'll be the one that teaches you what true hopelessness is and how to get it back." And so Rick and I just kept growing this message, talking to young people, developing this just wonderful set of programs and a system that's a full suite of classes. So we're doing this for the last 15 years. And then the universe says, "Hold on a minute, Tom. You're now ready. And you are now mature enough because you're way too immature. You were way too immature because I'm a savage. I'm just a dumb wrestler. But now you're ready. Now you've got the experience of having four of your own children. My youngest is 21. You have the experience of being married for 27 years. And all that means, Kate, is that I've screwed up too much. But I've kept it together. Even though I screwed everything up, I kept it together. And now the universe is like, "Hey, let me throw you a curveball. You can still do your kids' stuff with Rick, changing the world, helping young people that are struggling. But we got a new mission for you. We got some big, hairy dudes." Because here's the reality, Kate, and I'll hand it right back to you. The suicide rate in America The general rate is between 12 and 14 per 100,000. Our kids are at that rate today. That should make no sense to a human being's brain that's listening. We've never seen this in human history. Everybody knows about the 22 a day soldiers, right? That means the Marine Corps leads the charge at 34.9 per 100,000. Our kids are 12 to 14. The Marine Corps is at 34.9. In the electrical contract world, leading the charge are our linemen, the toughest adrenaline junkies in the industry. 67.8 per 100,000.
That's
So
insane.
insane. So the universe just said, hey, man, we have a new mission for you. You can still mess with the kids, still do that because you're good at it. They like you. You have fun with kids still. You're still way too immature. So we're going to let you be in that industry still of kids. But now we've got some men that are falling apart. And make no mistake about it, Kate, suicide is a human issue, but it's a male issue. Young men are 5 times more likely to die by suicide than young women. 40,000 men in this country every year.
Why men more than women?
Well, that's a fascinating conversation. And I have a couple theories of my own, but women attempt more. Men are more lethal. And so that's one of the things. But when you look at, and then again, there's a lot of theory here, but I would say there's two big things. And one is kind of a newer thought I've had. But men search for agency, women search for communion. Now, both men and women search for agency, which means you're trying to identify your resources and your individual power to build meaning in life. Young ladies, their main cascade of neurotransmitters is oxytocin, right? That bonding agent between people. Now, men have that too. But here's the best way to think about it. If you go to a playground and you watch, right? I like saying that to teachers. I like going to playgrounds to watch. And then they don't say anything. They don't say anything. They just look at you. And I'm like, isn't that a little bit creepy? And it's a great line. But seriously, if you go to a playground, look at the little girls. They're sitting around in a little circle, braiding each other's hairs. There's a few of them that are like wild Indians running around. And I know I'm not supposed to say wild Indians, but it's just, I'm trying to change things in my own brain and it's hard, right?
Yeah.
But they're running around just like the crazy boys. And there's still a few boys that are sitting in those circles with girls. That's not what I'm talking about. If you look at the majority of young ladies, they're communing with each other because that's what they're designed to do when we talk about the large group of humans. Little boys are chasing each other around with sticks and wrestling and all that other stuff. But what are they doing? They're searching for agency. How strong am I? How fast am I? How high can I climb? And again, I don't like to get in, I love getting into this discussion. But it's not a debate like I'm a tomboy. Okay, well, good. I have a daughter who's an infantry Marine. She's an absolute savage, right? Anyway, when you look at what's happened to men in the last 40 or 50 years, we have replaced all of the hardcore industrial stuff that men have done for thousands and thousands of years. Men used to carry bricks all over the place, right? Men used to build giant structures with their hands. But what are they doing? They're using their resource and their power, right? They're trying to build their agency. And one of the things we've done to young men is we've robbed them of that. We said, sit down, be quiet, and just let me teach you. No, most little young boys got to run around like a bunch of wild men, right? And figure out. They do these play starvation studies, Kate, that if you don't let rats rough and tumble play, rats start playing at 4 weeks, they end at 14 weeks. If you don't allow them to rough and tumble, they don't even know how to mate properly when they get older. Very important for especially young men to be able to do that kind of thing. And we have just systematically eliminated that in a young boy's profile when it comes to developing agency. So there's a lot of factors around this suicide increase, but The bottom line is this: we have a generation of men now, especially some of the toughest men you can imagine, physically tough, these linemen that are leaving this world at an unprecedented rate by their own hands.
So what are you doing? Or I guess two questions. One, you earlier referred to the name of your organization being intentional.
Yeah.
So I would like to know what that name means. And then I want to understand more about the actual programming that you do. So what is it that you actually do, whether it's, in a school or, at a local hall or something like that? What do you do when you're in there, and what makes it impactful? Because right now I suspect that people who are listening are like, okay, this sounds good, but it seems kind of nebulous. So like, what is Sweethearts and Heroes mean? And like, what are they doing? And why would I want to be involved?
Yeah, well, I appreciate those two questions. And, when I do podcasts and things, sometimes I like to try and not just recycle kind of the same conversation. I like to hit it kind of from a different angle.
Yeah,
And
I enjoy that.
yeah, I'll try and stay on the same theme right here. So when I was asked to do this first bullying presentation, and this guy from college called me, and he was the heavyweight on our team, and I was the 190 pounder. So he was a little heavier than me. He was older than me, bigger than me, stronger than me. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, man, I got this issue. He's supposed to have this Olympic speed skater come in. He called last minute, got all these kids set up for this assembly. What can you do?" And I'm like, I don't know. I know what I can do. I can play about a minute of me competing in a cage like a savage, run out in front of everybody and say, "That's the sport of mixed martial arts. And I'm going to tell you one thing about it. You ready for this, students? I hate fighting." And that's one of my intro lines with middle schoolers. And they're like, "What?" It doesn't make sense. It's this delicious irony to their brains. So, what I'm really saying is, I compete in a sport that I'm proud of. If you look up the definition of fighting, it's to use violent physical means such as blows, fists, or weapons to overpower someone. And any kid in that audience is going to be like, "Well, that's what you were doing. How can you say you hate fighting? You were using your fist to overpower someone." And I say, "Yeah, but it's not violence." And they're like, "Yes, it is." No, no, no. Violence is perpetrated on people outside of their will. I compete against my friends. I kick my friends in the face. I punch them in the face, just like
It's
little boys do.
consensual.
It's
It's
consensual.
consensual.
Yeah, it's consensual. And so I knew I could hook these kids. But then I'm like, what do I do from there? Because I was never bullied. I was never really a bully. I watched it happen. So then I said, well, that's the position I have to take it from. That has to be my perspective. So the first thing I did is I'm like, I got to educate myself because you're a dumb wrestler. What's bullying? So I opened the dictionary, my college dictionary. I think I got it on the shelf right here. It's right there on my shelf still. And I look up the word bully, a blustering, quarrelsome, overbearing person who habitually intends to badger smaller, weaker people. Now, there's four things in that definition. I'm not going to go over them with you, right? It's the heart of what we talk about, right? You have to understand this. When we talk about the laws of logic, the first law of logic is the law of identity, right? You got to identify what you're talking about, or you'll never be able to solve it. I'm in like kid presentation mode right now because yesterday I was in Long Island in front of 1,000 middle schoolers. I was down in Long Beach, Long Island yesterday.
Super savage, huh?
Yeah,
On this
a
time.
thousand. So, but I get through the definition, and then it says word origin, sweetheart, right? Really. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? So in the 16th century, the word bully meant sweetheart. It was an endearing term. And Kate,
Oh, interesting.
you wouldn't be on this call right now if it wasn't for your 16th century bullies, your sweethearts. Now, think about it like this. When you didn't feel like going to practice, they said, "Kate, get your stuff and get in the car. You're not quitting because your friends quit, because that's the only reason you went on the team, right? You brought the new instrument home. It was really hard because you thought you were going to be some rock and roll star, right? And it was hard. And you're like, bow, bow, this sucks. And it sat there in the corner. And then your mom's like, "I bought that thing for you." And she makes you practice. But now go even deeper. You're in college, life, you're struggling, your parents are going through a divorce, something awful happened to you. You don't feel like getting out of bed. And all of a sudden, the universe, boom, that phone rings. Kate, what are you doing? Nothing. I'm coming over. Get your stuff on. We're going out. I don't want to. Too bad. Click. Bang, 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 bang. She's at your door and she drags you out. Those are your 16th century bullies. And what they gave you is hope. Hold on, possibilities exist. HOPE. And what we have in this country is a generation of young people that feel more hopeless. They don't feel like they can hold on to the possibilities that exist for their future, so they're willing to give up. So this is what my discovery, like this was before Rick. Like I was like, oh my, not the whole hold on possibilities exist, but this hope that people can give other people. And I just had the beginning seed of it. So here was my plan. I go in this auditorium. I play a minute of me just savaging someone, blood, carnage. The kids are like, whoa, this is great. They let you watch this stuff in school now. And then all of a sudden I come out, I say I hate fighting. And the kids are like, what is happening right now? And then I'm like, after that, my next line is, the only reason I got inside that cage was because of your gym teacher. And I point at this big bald headed guy, and the kids are like, huh? Well, think about it, Kate. He was bigger than me. He was stronger than me. He was older than me. In the weight room, now I get serious now. In the weight room, when I couldn't lift that weight, he would literally smack me on my face. When I didn't get a takedown in the wrestling room, he would shove me across the room. But he bullied me to make me better. When I didn't think I could do something, he saw something in me. And then I went back into my life. All that stuff I told you, those men that came into my life, they didn't give me life on a silver platter. They said, bro, if you want to be successful, you got to be here at 5 a.m. to work out. If you want to be successful, you got to work 18 hours a day. And I trusted them. I put the time in with them. They shepherded me. They didn't do it for me. They didn't engineer me. They just shepherded me. They said, here's the pasture, bro. We'll feed you, but you got to do the work. And then when they saw me slacking, they kicked me into shorts. So this is how the word sweethearts was born in the definition. People say all the time, oh, you got to change the name of the organization. It doesn't make sense. But now you can't unknow it now. And
Mm-hmm.
every person in the world, I've never met a person that was like, no, I just did all this awesomeness myself. No, you didn't. It was the 16th century bullies that came into your life. Now, you did a lot of things by yourself. You might have been a good autodidact that can learn things, but there was a time when you were struggling. Like Lev Vygotsky said, right? The zone of proximal development. You needed the MKO, the more knowledgeable other, to shove you across that line, to pull you across the line, especially when you were struggling. So that's how it was born. And everything we've done has revolved around the fact that every human carries that hope inside of them. They were born with it. And at the right time, you can give that hope to other people when they need it the most. And that's where Rick comes in. And I'll land right after this. That imagine having 60 to 70% of your body instantly burned away. No ears, no nose, loses your leg. Your hands are melted together. You're literally turned into a monster. Imagine going through life after the age of 25 like that, how hopeless you would feel. And Rick did. He'll tell you there were times in my life that I felt more hopeless than when I was burning to death in Iraq, right? But every time, every single time, he thought he was never going to get that hope back and it would be easier to give up, to hold on to the possibilities that exist. The universe put someone in his life. One time it was a 5-year-old little girl, and then just a mountain of other people that took that hope out, gave it to him, and said, we'll help you get through that moment. So that's how Sweethearts and Heroes was born. And we've just been developing it ever since. That's the intentional name part of your question.
So, well, I got the sweetheart and then the heroes part makes sense. So I get a general sense of what's going on when you go into the schools. Can you give the people listening an idea of what happens when you come to like a local or you come to like, a work site or something like that and you give one of your presentations? Like, what could they expect there? Like, what's kind of the setup?
Well, the presentation, we've used the same model now, and we've just adapted it now for this new industry because our kids are struggling at a rate Earth has never seen. Our men, in particular the construction industry in general, in particular for us, these linemen, are struggling unlike men have ever struggled in this area, maybe in all of human history. I mean, men have always struggled, people have always struggled, but now we've got men taking their own lives with their own hands at a rate 5 times greater than being killed in a workplace related incident. People should think about that because of all the prevention that we do when it
Mhm,
comes to safety. We test gloves, we test hot sticks, we test mats, we test all this stuff. It's all
yeah,
prevention so people
mhm,
don't get hurt. But what happens when somebody hurts themselves all of a sudden, or they're potentially going to hurt themselves, and they have, they need intervention, right?
mm,
We say, here's a 988 sticker, here's a website, here's an EAP line. It's almost too late. I mean, I would just tell you it's never too late. We need intervention. But what about going way upstream and saying, how do we affect these men before they get to that point? Just like our gloves and our hot sticks and our mats and all that other stuff. Can we do something in that realm? And we've been doing something in that realm for years because our message is about student empowerment and not what you think. It's not about empowering kids that are being treated the wrong way. It's not about empowering kids that are hopeless. It's about empowering the rest of the kids that insulate and surround that kid, kids that are part of that community. So I'm going to tie it together for you here, but I got to give you one other really important piece. A lot of
okay.
our work has been validated because we were doing this way before Dr. Weinman jumped on the scene. Our message has been about empowering young people that are within that peer, that social network, to give the hope they have inside of them. And the heroes part is to jump into action. That's what heroes do. And they do things other people aren't willing to do, right? I ask kids, what's a hero? Oh, superpowers. I'm like, well, the bad guy has superpowers. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's just their willingness to do things other people aren't willing to do. That's what makes a hero. Like heroes are even willing to help the bad guys. And they're like, whoa, that's pretty deep right there. But it's a choice you have to make to jump into action, right? And there's a little bit more to it than that. So our message has been about the other people that are not struggling, raising their awareness level and then giving them the tools to help the people that are struggling. Enter Dr. Peter Weinman from the University of Rochester. He builds Wingman Guardian Connect for the U.S. Air Force. It's the first upstream prevention system, 7, 8 years ago. One of my very dear friends, a guy named Tim McGowan, helped build this with him. And here's what he figured out exactly what we were doing 6 or 7 years before his research. Young people will always set unhealthy social norms. What do you mean? They'll do dumb things because of their friends. I would have got arrested if I had a phone when I was a kid, right?
Oh
I
my
used to
God,
have
don't get me started.
I know. But here's what he figured, and you can't stop that. They're gonna do it. And there's a tremendous amount of brain science around that too. John Medina wrote a wonderful book called Attack of the Teenage Brain. It's short, it's funny, great book for anybody out there that has children of their own. It's on Audible too. Anyway, young people are going to do ridiculous, stupid things. They're going to seek novel sensations. They're going to become very difficult because they have to separate from their pack at home and they have to find a new pack, right? You're not supposed to mate with your pack at home. You're supposed to go out into the wilderness and find a new pack. You're supposed to avoid arrows and lions. When mommy's like, oh, I'll take care of you, baby. No, mom, I hate you. I need to go out. That's just the real savage science right there without getting too deep. So young people are going to do stupid things because of their peer network. But here's what Dr. Weinman figured out. If the conditions are right, young people will also set good, healthy, adaptive social norms within their peer network. Now, here's a really quick example. You got a group of young ladies, you're doing savage things, you guys are doing inappropriate things, saying inappropriate things because you're supposed to, right? But all of a sudden, one of the girls in your network, father dies unexpectedly. You're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And you get together with the girls. Oh, well, your dad has a restaurant. Maybe he'll let us use it when it's closed. Oh, and your dad has flower stand. Could you get some flowers? What are you doing? You're setting a good, healthy, adaptive norm for this group of kids, and you're going to get together and you're going to insulate this person that's struggling with a deep sense of hopelessness. Now, great, you help her through it. You get through that moment because when you talk about suicide, when somebody thinks about it or when they think they're going to do it, it usually happens within 15 minutes. But it's only a moment they have to get through. Okay? That you get this young lady, I'm not saying she would hurt herself because of that, but she's still feeling hopeless. You insulate her, you get her through that moment. All of a sudden, 6 months later, something happens to another one of your members in your peer network. You already have built the model. Oh, call your dad, get the flowers. Boom. You have created an adaptive norm that will insulate the people within your network. So, what we do is we help accelerate that. And it's a big conversation, but it's a simple, beautiful one. And probably the number one way we do it, because we don't want to just help, because usually that kid that's hopeless, he doesn't have a lot of friends anyway. So he doesn't have that peer network. So we have to get him into what we call an intergroup. If you look up the intergroup empathy bias, you'll see some of this science. We have to create new intergroups, especially with kids that don't feel like they belong, especially that are isolated. Well, the same thing happens in businesses. It's just a little bit different. We're human beings. We'll develop new intergroups within businesses, within networks, and we'll only penetrate so deep when it comes to those relationships. It's called social penetration theory. Taylor and Altman in the 1970s outlined how we penetrate with other human beings. We have learned outside of our presentations and that kind of magic and that showmanship, what we have done is we take this ancient structure called circle. It's a 400,000-year-old practice, and we have become masters at it only because I have sat in 400 to 500 circles over the last 7 or 8 years of my life with infantry Marines at Camp Pendleton, with students, with teachers, with bankers, with real estate people, with restaurant people. You just sit in a circle and you commune the way human beings were designed to commune with one another. And that's really the beauty of our work is after this ignition phase of what we do, that's just high impact, high energy. Then we set up a program. And right now we're running a big pilot program with 1249, which is the union in Syracuse, all the linemen for New York State. Also, Richardson and Son, Cheryl Richardson, said this woman recognized after she took over her husband's business, and she's a savage too.
She's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, we love Cheryl.
Yeah, so Frank had he's gonna kill me. He had like 10 trucks and one show up. 6 years later, they got like 150 vehicles and 5 show-ups because of Cheryl. But she also recognized that the system that has been built doesn't work to help. Sticking a number on someone's helmet, because she knows men. She's been around men. Her husband is a tough guy, man. Frank is tough. I don't want to talk about this stuff. But the reality is, men have been talking about these things for thousands of years, not sitting in a therapist's office. No, sitting around a fire, sharing the difficulties they've gone through, which ultimately become their strengths. We don't watch movies of people that are just successful. We watch movies of people that go through hell, and that becomes their strength. And unfortunately, in the real world, that feels like weakness. So
Mhm.
because we have a little bit of bravado with the mixed martial arts, with Rick in the military, we have another member of our team that does circle with these linemen. He's a three-time combat veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, a major in the Marine Corps, saw things no human eyeballs should be allowed to see. But that bonding between these men, these high voltage power linemen, and us is part of the formula. It's not the only part. The real part of the formula is the circle practice that we've developed. So we teach, because now I'm just finishing your second question, like 10 hours later, but the intentional name part, but the programming, we come in, we do this high impact ignition, but then we also say, let us just sit with you in circle and just experience it. And there's a guy from Nika in Washington, D.C. He sat
Is
in
it
one of
Mike
my
Sterner?
circles. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Throw him
Yeah.
under the bus. Throw him under the bus.
Okay.
So,
I didn't mean to
so
throw you under the bus, Mike.
no, no, Mike's great, man. I love him. But it was so funny because I did this one little circle thing just one time. And a month later, he calls me and he's like, "You don't know me, but I sat in one of your circles." And Mike's an old lineman, right? You don't sit around and talk about your feelings. But Mike sat in 1 hour and 20 minute circle. Calls me a month later. I have no idea who he is. He goes, "You don't know me. I sat in your circle." He goes, um, "I feel like I know some of those guys better than some of my own teammates at home." He goes, "Would you come to Des Moines, Iowa and do that for us?" I'm like, "Yeah." So Rick and I last 6 months or so went to Des Moines and delivered the keynote to the Safety Professional Conference. And that's just what kind of exploded what we're doing, because we didn't just do the keynote. I ran 4 or 5 circles, led me to Melissa Cares. And if you don't know her, you should, up in Alaska.
I should.
Yeah, Melissa runs another woman. She runs the line school, about 400 men up in Alaska. You want to talk about some savagery. Um, but she's doing the same thing. She sat in the circle with us and she owned it. And she was honest, she was vulnerable, and just impressed the heck out of me. But they're all realizing right now that the system we have is needed. The intervention system is needed. However, we got to get back to being synchronously embodied face to face with other human beings and neurologically grow. Because I'm going to take you back to the opening line of this whole thing when I went into prevention intervention. I wrote something down that you said. It's very important. And we have to get this through everybody's thick skulls. This is not a competition. You said that in the beginning. It's not a contest of, is it intervention, prevention? It's not a contest. It's the lives of the men and a handful of women in this country that we're losing at a rate Earth has never seen. We got to stop the competition, people. We got to get back to community, and we need to grow neurologically and spiritually the way humans have always grown if we're going to fix this mess.
I agree with you, and I feel like this keeps coming up for me in different conversations I'm having where it's almost like we're overcomplicating things where we need to get back to something that's more essential to who we are as humans, building community, supporting each other, just having a group of people to lean on when times are hard, or having people be able to come to you if they know that you can help them. And I think that's huge. And one of the things I'm curious about with this program is, like, so you go to these different organizations, these different schools, how once you're gone, like, you come, you've done your presentation, you've done circle, how do they maintain that momentum, or how to, what are the follow-up kind of steps? Because it's like, I can't imagine you just come in, you do your thing, leave, and then everybody goes back to, maybe some people do, but is there some kind of, uh, support work, or like, this is what you do now if you want to keep doing it?
Yeah, are you a tinfoil hat person?
I mean, sometimes
Okay, okay. Well,
many memes.
okay, I'll put my tinfoil hat on real quick. I don't want to just back up to one thing and then I'll answer your question.
Sure.
Um, there's not a lot of money in prevention.
I know.
And so it's like, we need a pill, we need a shrink. And again, please, I have a degree in psych. I'm not anti. I'm huge on exposure therapy and several other really important things that we do. But you say, what?
Capitalism jacks it up a little
Yeah,
bit.
you're just like, we got to make this simple. Yeah, we do. We made it
You
this
can't make
far.
cash if it's
That's right.
simple. And how do you where do we go from there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just as a species, we made it this far because of each other, right?
absolutely.
And that's empathy. Empathy, all it is at its core, is we've learned to share resources with one another, help people that are in distress so that when we're in distress, people help us. That's the core of empathy. And then you become compassionate, which means you try to alleviate the suffering people go through. And we have a society that trusts one another. So, again, let me take the tinfoil hat off, but it just, you said that. But I refuse to go in. I'm done with awareness, by the way, Kate. Going in and doing a speech and telling people about what's going on in America. Go to Instagram, go to TikTok. They'll tell you everything that's going on, but no one's doing anything. I'm only getting involved with organizations that, like Cheryl Richardson, that says, yeah, Tom, put your money where your mouth is. You just wowed everybody, right? You just showed everybody this incredible presentation. You drugged this American hero in. People are crying, buildings are burning, babies are wailing. It's just a really impactful speech that we do, that we've developed just around this electrical contract world. But good for you, man. I can go watch a TED talk and be inspired. So Cheryl said, okay, big boy, put your money where your mouth is. And so for the last 3 months, we've been in the field, sitting in chairs in circle with these dudes. We've been at 1249, and we will be there for the next 8 more months working with the apprentices, trying to give them the structure of circle. Because what we're doing is we're trying to make that a spaced repetitive practice. See, men used to do it around the tailboard. You go to most job sites now, somebody gets 10 minutes free, they're on their phone. They're locked into one of these variable reward scheduled systems that have just completely dominated our attention and ruined our social connection. And that's all. Jonathan Haidt can talk about that one. If you want to read The Anxious Generation, you can read how that whole thing's going down. But we need to get back to this embodied practice. Now, not only do we go and do this, we'll be this coming week, we'll be at 163 in Wilkes-Barre presenting to their group. In November, we'll be in Local 42 in Connecticut. We've already done stuff with O'Connell, which is Rochester, Buffalo, Syracuse, New York, and several others, Northline Utility. But not only are we making the commitment to get into circle with these big, hairy dudes and a handful of women.
And an occasional one.
That's right. Cheryl's got
Harry.
Cheryl has 2 female apprentices, which is awesome. Um, But what we're also doing is we have developed a train the trainer model where we teach people. We have a 2 and a 3 day course on Circle. We have a master class that we've made digitally that's really well done on this circle practice. And people sit in a circle and they're like, "Well, that was incredible," but they have no idea what's happening underneath the hood. Empathy is a 3 stage process that I won't go over with you, but human beings transition through these 3 stages the same way for thousands and thousands of years. The core competencies for social emotional health. There's 5 big ones that James Comer came up with in the 1960s. They are skills that have to be practiced. And we've eliminated that largely because we eliminated self directed play from children. That's where you practice these skills and build the neurological structures for it. But there's other things. There's social penetration theory on how we actually connect with other human beings, and just a plethora of things that happen underneath the hood of this circle that are ancient structures. Because, Kate, we are at war with an ancient enemy. And that ancient enemy is fear, it's anxiety, it's depression. It's the thing that has dominated and controlled societies and human beings for thousands and thousands of years. And we can defeat it. And the motto has always been the same. It's always been sweethearts and heroes, people that give hope. and people that take action to alleviate that suffering, that's been the answer since the beginning of human history. And we got to get back to it.
Well, so this is a good place to ask you, what kind of what's the scheduling like? I know you guys do a lot of work up in New England, and like New York and Pennsylvania and that kind of thing. But like, what's your wait list like if people want to become involved, if they want to book a session? How does that work and how can they reach out to you or, give us the lowdown?
Yeah, well, after 16 years, I feel like we're still building this ship. We have several team members that do a lot of this. We will be at the Outside Line Conference talking about this in Puerto Rico in March.
Nice.
Asked to go and do a fireside chat and talk about this because it's having such a big impact in the Northeast. I've talked to several other massive contractors in New Jersey and Long Island recently because they're all experiencing the same thing. I would just say get a hold of us, but we're only interested in dealing with people that want to fix the system that's broken. So if you're looking for just a keynote, I probably don't have time for it. Um, but if you're interested in learning how to truly help these men, kid, I gave up a lot of my life. And if I told you how much I made when I was in the rail industry in 2014, you'd be like, oh my God. And I have a salary at Sweethearts and Heroes of $3,500 a month. And I probably shouldn't tell
I feel like that number's gone up since the last time.
It did. I used to have
Congratulations on the raise.
yeah, inflation. And I always feel really weird saying that because I feel like maybe I'm bragging or I'm trying to flex, but I just told myself when I left the rail industry that I wasn't going to serve two masters. And the second you start making it about money, you lose the game. Now, we're not cheap to bring in. We have a team that supports the work that we do. And a lot of it is Rick and I getting out there and some of our guys getting out there in the field. But I can tell you what, you look at the data when it comes to losing one person to suicide and what that costs you. One personal injury costs you. And make no mistake about it. I've gotten in arguments recently about this, and I'm calling suicide a personal injury now. And there's people say that's not a personal injury. Okay,
How is it not a
exactly.
personal injury?
So I would just tell anybody, you can find us anywhere online, sweetheartsandheroes.com, any social media you can find us on. And I promise I have 100% response rate myself. I can still maintain that right now. I work on this 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no days off for me. And I know it's not healthy, but that's the position the universe has me in right now. I've been in it for 16 years, and I'll continue to be in it, I guess, until they bury me in this free hug shirt.
Well, and I, mentioned capitalism earlier and how it's, difficult to talk about prevention when, there's no money in that, in terms of like how people are selling things. But I will say, at least in my own experience, and this might come from a position of privilege, but I think when you're doing important work or work that's really helping people, that even when you don't make, what some would consider a handsome salary, that parts of your life take care of themselves or things come in. It's all like karma and energy. And that's how I feel. It's like, am I ever going to be a billionaire? No, kind of don't want to anyway with that whole crew. But I'm doing like important stuff and I feel like I'm taken care of in a way that I can't quite put into words. If I think you know what I mean, though. Um, so let's do this. I want to ask you before we go. Is there anything that you want to talk about, mention, that we haven't talked about that you feel like is important for people to know? Um, you know, go for it.
Yeah, I'll just tell you two quick things, and if it trips anything else, I'll be glad. And I have a million things to talk about, but
And
one
we'd love
thing.
to have you back.
Yeah, anytime,
Me.
anytime. And I could get Rick back on here to talk with you. You'd be
I would
fascinated
love
with
that.
Rick
Yeah.
and Chad Altheiser, the fellow from the major in the Marine Corps, just has a different perspective about men, and a lot of military folks go into the trades, into construction at some level when they exit the armed services. So he can give you a different perspective on men and maybe just their integration back into some of the trades. And because a lot of the incident prevention work I think you do is around that kind of work. But one thing I failed to mention is the program that we've developed is called the Fifth Wire, and we've written a couple good articles about the Fifth Wire, and
We'll be publishing one soon.
so hopefully, if people want to know more about the Fifth Wire and kind of a summary without my, ADHD, ADD, whatever, ABC mind going ballistic, and you're like, where's he at right now? He's all over the place, and I try and pull everything back together. But once I know you got your hands on the Fifth Wire article and you're gonna, bring it to an apex and really an understanding so that people can say, okay, I get it now. So I would mention that. And the other thing I would mention, because you kind of said this, but I like to kind of drop this dime sometimes. For years before I got involved in this electrical contract work, I started to read about voltage drop and Ohm's law, wrote an article on voltage drop. And I think that to me, again, you can have all of this awareness stuff and you go to conferences, you get big binders, doesn't matter what industry you're in. And then you go home and that's information, this material, it just changed your life. And then, 6 months later, you look over at your shelf and there's that big binder that's just full of dust. And that's voltage drop. And now that I'm involved in the electrical contract world, I really dove into Ohm's law. And all it says is you put voltage out on a line, and what matters is the current that goes down that line. And when you get to the other end, the voltage has dropped. That's voltage drop. You go to this seminar in Las Vegas, you come home 6 months later, you haven't done anything with it, even though it was the greatest stuff. Because of why? Because Ohm's law says there's resistance. What's resistance? Maybe it's your mindset. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's a family member that got sick. Maybe it's a promotion. Maybe it's you're building a new house and all this resistance hits. But we can't have resistance on this line because this resistance is life or death. So we got to protect against the voltage drop. And I think that's the one thing that we really run up the flagpole is we're not allowing voltage to drop. And if you want to get involved with us, we're going to put some things in place so that we can keep that voltage hot on the line. Because, I was just at a place last week, and I'll end on this. And I actually reached down in the dirt and grabbed a cotter pin that was in the dirt because I was talking to a safety guy who used to be a general foreman, who used to be a lineman, and we were talking about a suicide that their company had. And he said, "Man, everybody knew this guy was struggling. This guy was the life of the party, right? He just got custody of his child. Everybody knew he was the life of the party, great guy, but we knew he was struggling. And we cannot allow that voltage to drop." And it's not that they didn't, everybody was like, "Hey, man, we're here for you. We're here for you." But that's not what's going to help because in the dark of the night, when the demons come for you and that 15-minute window happens, no one's really there for you. No one's coming. And but if we set up a system where men can share that really difficult, hard stuff beforehand, it's like I tell guys this. I say it's like that manhole cover. That lid is heavy, and guys are really good at picking that lid up with their muscles, and then they drop their personal crap in there. They put that manhole cover back on top of it, and then they park their frickin' truck on it, right? And Edgar Allan Poe said the same thing. He said, the scariest monsters are the ones that live deep within our souls. And we put them there as men. And when the night comes, whatever that metaphor means to anybody, it's really, really tough when you don't have those sweethearts and heroes that have insulated you and have said, man, I went through the same thing, bro. And let me tell you the story. And that's what we do in Circle. We talk about those difficult things. So the voltage doesn't drop between days of struggle that human beings go through.
Thank you so much, not only for the conversation, but just for the work that you have been doing, and just your commitment to it. I mean, you can really tell that your heart and mind and soul are all really in this. So, I also want to let our listeners know just real briefly if you want to reach out to Tom to learn more about Sweethearts and Heroes, to book a program, any of that kind of stuff. We have his information on our website at utilitysafety.podbean.com. You can also visit the Sweethearts and Heroes website at sweetheartsandheroes.com. And until next time, stay safe and be well. The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes with your company management prior to implementation.